B2B e-commerce advertisers, are you trying to generate 24,000 more revenue and less questionable leads for your business? In this video, I'll show you exactly how I did this for my client step by step. Okay, as you can see here, when I took over this account, they practically had no tracked revenue. So we increased the revenue here, 24,000, increased conversions, phone calls, and scaled the account with me taking it over here from this date range of January 9th to July 24th. So you can see spend was scaled 600%, conversions increased 12,000%, conversion value went up 28,000%, and all these positive metrics. So essentially the first problem with this account overall was it wasn't tracking e-commerce revenue properly. So I imported the Google Ads conversion purchase into this account so we could track revenue and optimize more towards ultimately what their goal was, which was revenue. Because prior they were in between of optimizing for leads, getting calls, but not really knowing where these calls were going because they had a custom CRM that wasn't really tracking everything. So that was strategically shifting more over to like an e-commerce focused mindset instead of B2B lead generation, even though they're selling products, but like closing over the phone and doing stuff like that. Importing carts and also tracking calls from the website was very important, which we weren't doing. We were only tracking calls from ads. So it was very helpful to have all these things being tracked overall. Also, we were getting a lot more people to register for accounts on this client. So these are also valuable actions that even bring even more revenue that isn't being tracked directly, but is a big booster for the business overall. So that was number one, is tracking all the conversions properly. Now that we had essentially the conversions tracking properly in the account, we still had two different tests that we had to run. One was more lead generation focused, which was more phone calls, lead form submissions, that sort of thing. So essentially, what we were testing first is more search campaigns. And in these search campaigns, essentially, they would generate leads and phone calls, but they wouldn't essentially overall generate more revenue from the business that could be tracked. So essentially here you can see, if we scroll down, a lot of these call campaigns were launched and they were essentially successful for what the business essentially initially thought they wanted. See here, phone calls were being generated at a high level with the call only campaigns, which is essentially a mobile focused ad type that shows just a phone number and that people can call in the account. So we really wanted to drive more phone calls because we believed tip people, since the website wasn't that optimized with forms, people rather just call in and just based on like the um, customer target, they tended to want to call more. So you can see the call campaign was generating a lot. Their branded campaign obviously was generating a lot of calls too. And then the retargeting campaigns as well. But this was ultimately always question marks like, what are these turning into? And you might think the same thing in your business. Like they might be conversions where they're longer phone calls, but at the end of the day, you don't know what's better or not. So we essentially tested different things to improve lead quality, making the conversion longer. So if it's like it has to be a longer than a minute conversation to see if that was a quality lead, versus just having it at a minute or 30 seconds where it's just a phone call. Any phone call is a good lead. So that was the first thing, is like kind of switching that focus and the mindset and understanding what the client really wanted. But from the initial jump, search campaigns focused on calls, what we were really driving to here overall. And the call only campaign was doing the best. However, there were other types of search campaigns that were also running that would also get calls, but it wasn't optimized only for calls. It was sending people to the site, but those people weren't really purchasing. So the call campaign was initially a success for what we wanted there, but the strategy was essentially beginning to shift less away more away from search and over to a campaign type, which I'll talk about in a second. But just diving deeper into the search here, as we shifted strategy, we saw that different campaigns were going to be able to generate us more revenue. So we were seeing that some of our best performing products were some of their kits. So essentially launching campaigns that were more e-commerce focused on the different ways that people would search the SKU of the item and really test different like phrase match focused keywords versus having two exact match, so that we could essentially get people that are generally searching for our items but aren't looking for a specific brand yet. We could get people basically more in the top or the middle of the funnel, and that helped to generate more tracked revenue, which is ultimately more beneficial than the phone calls. So that was the first like main shift that really helped search essentially track more revenue. So you can see this has more purchases. This is also tracking calls from the website and creating a bunch of accounts, because people that tend to search and click, they try to navigate the site, they might just either create an account so they can buy, or they're going to call. So that's what we were seeing a lot of there. And then also on the search, which was very important to help supplement the account, is breaking out and testing different regional campaigns, because specifically for this client, people would buy more of their product if there was like a natural disaster in an area, or if anything like that happened, or certain seasons. So breaking out different regional campaigns would help increase or decrease conversions as well. You can have like different cold weather campaigns, different types of stuff like that. And then not only just for new audiences, but for retargeting audiences as well. This was very important overall. So conversion value here. So you can see um, dynamic campaigns as well did really good for this client, because dynamic is basically a type of ad type that can crawl all the pages on your website and almost be like paid SEO. So if someone's searching for a very specific SKU and you don't have that keyword being targeted, or like ad copy for every single one, dynamic search ads are really helpful to help scale and basically create more ads with the dynamically generated headlines that can bring people to have more e-commerce and generate very high conversion rates. Like these are almost like 10% conversion rates on the dynamic search. And this helped push more towards e-commerce, even though we're B2B, than just trying to generate leads and having the salespeople have to close the people or whatever that is. We're generating more through dynamic. And to build off of that, we did more retargeting with dynamic. So this would get very big orders, because people would be researching, then they would type in the SKU that they actually want, and we'd bid up at the very top doing remarketing on search. So this would also help get us a ton of revenue as well, that we would have missed out almost like half from retargeting as well here. So this was a shift away from call and more over e-commerce focus with dynamic search campaigns. And then as we saw the performance do good there, we launched a test, created a whole new test feed just for our best-selling products on the site. So essentially, I got the client to give me a feed of essentially the product data, price, title, images, stock level, all that type of stuff, so that I could create a brand new Google Sheets feed. Since the site was kind of old, we didn't have essentially all the apps that we could integrate with other platforms like Shopify. So we almost had to do a Sheets format that needed to be refreshed. But what this did, it allowed us to import our products and really see what people are going to buy on Google. Because just because something's a bestseller in other channels doesn't mean Google's going to necessarily work. We could get outpriced in the auctions. People could have better pricing. There could be a lot of competitors for that product. So we had to test and see, okay, what's going to do good on shopping, and like put a little bit of budget there, and then slowly scale it up. As we started to see performance do well, getting a few sales here and there, we're like, okay, we got to push more budget into this and test new campaign types to essentially get this account scaling more and more up. So in order to launch that and do much better, I recommended we do a PMax campaign like a lot of my e-commerce clients do in order to scale. Once you have account data, you're getting some performance, you now want to launch PMax. And you can see here, this was the lion's share of revenue generated was from PMax campaigns, and pushing more, not only revenue, phone calls, account submissions, a lot of different things. PMax was helping to help this client boost here. And essentially with PMax, which is why PMax settings are very important, is we initially had more a conversion focused type of bidding strategy because you're like, hey, we want to really get all types of conversions. Still, we're kind of still in that mindset. We want to get calls, account submissions, and since purchases were in that conversion realm too, you'd think that you'd possibly pick up sales along the way. But realistically, your purchases are going to be devalued by a maximized conversions focused bidding strategy if you have a bunch of other ones like B2B ecom with like lead generation too. So we switched to a maximized conversion value. So this is Google's going to favor purchases a lot more because it's tracking more revenue, especially if you don't have offline conversions integrated. So we essentially switched to maximized conversion value bidding strategy, and that really changed the game for this account because not only did we have the feeds linked to now, we had purchase data, but now we had the power of PMax utilizing our search, dynamic search campaign data, our shopping data, and now had a testing strategy of testing their best keywords, retargeting, and it really helped to blow the account up. So you can see like how many like sales we're getting from these different signals, and we're testing a lot of different types of audience signals, competitors, um, different type of interest, all that type of stuff here. And primarily, we're focusing on shopping only and search only, not assets, because people don't tend to purchase like that. They do a lot of shopping and search focused, a lot of these tests. But recently we have more new tests where actually images and video integrated assets are doing better because the account's more matured and Google can now expand outside of that. So that was like a really big win for this account overall. And then we can like take a quick look into Merchant Center, where we essentially had all the products that we imported and we refreshed consistently so that we could essentially see what was doing better, what wasn't showing on Google, what was in stock, what was out, and what the click potential was. And this ultimately helped the PMax more focused on revenue and less reliant on calls and not really sure what the ROI of Google was. If you'd like me to help scale your B2B e-commerce company, reach out for a free consultation below.